Hello, and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman, and I am one of your hosts. Every Wednesday and Friday, we bring you interviews of female and non-binary makers of all kinds from all over the world. Today's guest is Laura Pipitone of Oakley Soap Company. So kind of as the title of her company leads you to believe, she is a soap maker. And she's actually been running her business and been a soap maker for overall, like the grand scheme of things, not for a hugely long time. But she has some fun soaps that she creates, and her business is definitely taking off and growing. So it's fun to have a chance to sit down and chat with her, not just about the business of making soaps, but the business part of the business of making soaps. So grateful to have had that opportunity. Before we hop into the interview with Laura, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much. Lee at Lee Runyon, Annette 513 Woodworks, Katie Thompson, Women of Woodworking, Kevin, Lefty's Woodshop, Christy, Twisted Twine, Jeremy Speece, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, Toolmom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Brandy, Studio Obey, Lee, The Rainbow Carver, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued support of the podcast, helping to produce those 2 episodes a week every week. Truly could not keep up this pace without your support. So if you are enjoying the podcast and would really love to help support it as well and get your name added to the list at the top of the episode, you certainly can. Just head on over to patreon.com/crafting a revolution and check out the different tier levels over there. And whatever tier you pick, we'll get you on the list of thank yous, because we truly mean that. We are truly thankful for each and every one of you, whether you're at a $1 tier or a $5 tier, $3. We're thankful for all of you. So thank you so much. All right, so let's head on into my conversation with Laura. Well, as you definitely know, Laura, I always start by asking my guests to introduce themselves. So would you do that for me?
Sure. My name is Laura Pipitone. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the owner and maker of the Oakley Soap Company. I'm based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm also a mom of a 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I have been married to my husband, Brett, for 13 years.
Nice. You've got me beat just by like a year on the marriage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yeah. Awesome. And you're like, I think only the second soap maker I've had as a guest.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. That always excites me when I have people on who do things that I don't do. Because then I get to ask all kinds of crazy questions. So
well, I can nerd out about it. So I'm happy to answer them.
And we will definitely get there. But I want to start by asking the broader question of what is the story of Laura, from like baby Laura to like where you grew up to how'd you get into making soap?
Sure. Well, I grew up just outside of Chicago, the Southwest Chicago suburbs. Pretty typical childhood, oldest of 4. I did a lot of like cooking and baking growing up. That was kind of my one craft. I'm not particularly artistic. I'm not great like fixing things or with tools, but I could always cook. And as the oldest of 4, I was kind of put in charge of cooking a lot, or at least helping out with dinner. And then after high school, I was kind of into music. That was my other big thing, as I sang, and I played the saxophone for like 5 minutes. And then after high school, I went to college in St. Paul, Minnesota. I was there for 4 years. Then I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life, so I ended up doing a year of volunteer work with a program that is like a small, kind of like AmeriCorps, but smaller. And I said, I want to go anywhere but the deep South. And I ended up in Savannah, Georgia, just because I had never been there and I didn't know anything about it. And the universe put me there, and I ended up staying there for 10 years. So I did my volunteer work. And then when that year was up, I was offered a job that was within that. So I worked in healthcare administration just as a assistant for about 7 years, and kind of had some other jobs along the side. That's where I met my husband. He is also a Midwesterner. He's from Ohio. And once we had our first kid, we realized that we want to be closer to family. We were 12 hours from his parents, 15 hours from mine, and we wanted to go somewhere closer. I didn't necessarily feel like we had to go back to our hometowns, but we wanted to go somewhere closer. So we moved to Cincinnati. My husband got a job there, and he went to college up here. So we had some friends in the area. It was a lot closer to my parents, my siblings. And I fell in love with Cincinnati. I'm a Midwestern girl at heart, even though I've lived other places. Like I am, tried and true cornbread, Midwestern, I don't wear a coat until it's,
of course,
20 degrees outside. But
that's
Savannah
right.
was very hot and very weird for me. I loved it and it was beautiful, but my blood is Midwestern.
Yeah.
So and I worked for a little bit just here and there, part-time jobs. I was lucky enough that I didn't have to go back full-time. I had my second daughter. And then just before she started school, I decided I needed a hobby because I didn't have any. And I always wanted to get into soap making. I was one of those people who was a big nerd about not even like skincare, but just I liked smelly things. I liked to like put on masks and buy all the different soaps. And when I would go to like vendor events or craft fairs, I was always like towards the Bath and Body stuff. And when I looked into it, I realized it was a lot like cooking. So that's kind of how I got into it. I decided to try it and instantly fell in love. And then from there, it just kind of got out of control.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say when you started your story and it starts in Chicago and then Minnesota, and now you're into, I was like, oh yeah, you're a true Midwesterner.
Yep. And I felt like my kids needed to be the same. They can go off and do their own thing, but I wanted them to get a good Midwestern base.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I, we lived in Southern California for almost 5 years. And there's definitely things I miss about that part of the country. But it was really hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was hard. Like, it's just such a different culture there than like the Midwest. And it was really hard to like adapt. And I don't think I ever fully adapted, like I definitely think maybe it took some of the sharper edges off of me, which is good. That I brought back with me to the Midwest, a little bit more laid back than when I went out there. But I remember it was warm there too for me, at least the first couple of years. And then I became just as much as a wimp as everybody else out there. Yeah. It was like when it hits 60, that's when like the winter coat comes out. But now that I'm back, it's like, I just got told the other day, it was like 40 degrees. I'm dropping my kids off at the bus. And one of the teachers drives the bus and she's like, go put a coat on. I'm like, nah. Good.
Well, my son, even though he was born in the South, he's a Midwestern kid. Like today, I was like, you need to bring a coat. I know you're wearing shorts, but you need to at least bring a sweatshirt for me, please.
Yeah. My kids are the same way. Very similar. Like I've been having to start begging them because at their school, they spend half a day outside. And
wow. Yeah.
It's like when it's, today's our first snow. Wow. About there. Yeah. So we're getting our first snow, and it's like 37. I'm like, besides a coat, you need to take a stocking cap. Like you need to they're like, why? And I'm like, just please. Like you cannot wear it when you're there, but I at least need to feel like a good mom that I sent you out the door with all of the proper attire. Exactly.
I fight that war every day from about, November to March.
Yeah. So, okay. I totally see the line of like baking and cooking to soap making. How did the soap making as a hobby turn into a business?
It social media basically. And it's expensive. So I started making soaps just for the family and was giving them away. And I was always sharing on like Facebook and Instagram, oh, this is what I made, this is what I made. And I just kind of thought of a name of a business in my head and kind of just grabbed the Instagram handle for it, just sort of as a maybe if one day. And then more and more people on my personal page started asking, can I buy this? Can I buy this? Can I share it with friends? And I started, I was just charging people for basically for cost, just so I could get feedback and, hear what people said. I really wanted to know. And then I ended up making a soap that went a little viral, enough that enough people started sharing it that I was like, okay, the government's going to come after me if I don't start doing something about this. So that's when I realized, all right, I will go and kind of get all the, paperwork in place to be an actual business owner. And it just proceeded to snowball from there. I really thought it was just going to be a part-time thing that I'd make it when I could. And within a year of starting the business, I was able to quit my part-time job and do this full-time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the viral soap?
I made a orange soap that, I'm going to get political here, but I know you're on the same page. I made an orange soap that made fun of Donald Trump, made of carrots, and I gave the money back. It went to I can't remember what it went to, but I think it went to like the ACLU. And I also my in college I have a public relations background, journalism, public relations. So one of the nice parts about running a business is I like the social media aspect of it and like the copy editing part of it, because I can write and I have been told I'm funny. So more the story behind the soap, like the description of the soap, is what kind of went nuts from there.
I can see that though. I mean, like, follow being like I follow you, and I'm gonna put out there, I am like, if I was at a craft show, the soap section would be the last section that you would find me at.
Right.
Like, that is not where I'm going to gravitate towards. But like I, follow along with you and like your stuff because I think of the description, like,
oh, thank you.
the Die Hard soap line. I was like, I can get on board with like the Die Hard soap line. So I think there is something to that. I mean, and that's what they say, right? It's like, it's more about the story than necessarily the end product.
Yeah. And it really, this gets to feed both my sort of artistic side of being able to make the soap and make things look pretty. But then I also really get to use my writing skills, which was kind of back when I was a kid, that's ultimately what I wanted to do, was write. So I really get to, use that as well. And a lot of times I'm also kind of a pop culture nerd. So a lot of times the soap name will come first and then I'll design a soap around that.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Donald Trump soap. So, but I'll start with this question because I do want to know, where does Oakley Soap Company, like, where's the name come from?
Sure. It's actually the neighborhood that I live in Cincinnati. Okay. So I live in the Oakley neighborhood. Cincinnati is very much a neighborhood town, the way kind of Chicago is, where your identity is really wrapped up into your neighborhood. And I'm, not from here originally, but we moved here, we rented here when we first moved, and I instantly fell in love. And it was like, we need to find a house here because it's kind of the perfect urban, but my kids can still kind of go outside and I'm less worried about them being hit by a car, sort of in between, not quite the suburbs, and it's still really walkable, but just a cool neighborhood.
Okay.
But because of that, that allowed me to, like, the name sort of shows what part of the city I'm from, which allows me to, no one's surprised when I make political statements. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I've made it clear from the start. I decided when I started this business that I am not going to hide certain parts of myself. So I'm not an overly political business, but I'm not also going to just keep that out of the rhetoric as well. My charities that I'm going to support are going to go towards causes that you're going to, where I stand, where my politics are based on my support.
Yeah. So I want to like go through that, I guess, of like, has there been any backlash from doing that?
Not yet, not a whole lot.
Okay.
I I'm nervous about it. I'm sure it will happen one day. Once in a while, I'll get a crummy statement, but I'm working on a middle road where I'm not constantly posting about politics. But I am very adamant in my support that Black Lives Matter and LGBTQIA lives, and that the charity that I work with is for that supports transgender kids and young adults. So I will make those things clear. If there's something in the news, I will post about it. I will have a fundraiser for it. But it's not my whole identity. But you can look at the names of my soaps even and see kind of where things fit, and then it's not just like pretty smelling things. There's a backstory behind what I do, and I've made that part of my whole kind of brand. I had to really sit down and say, all right, I have to be willing to take the heat if it comes up. But honestly, it's been more positive than negative.
Hey makers. So today's podcast episode is sponsored in part by Alicia Van Osdal, who is the owner of Basil Blue Design Company. Alicia is a maker of all things, really. Her focus is on beautiful craftsmanship through woodworking, repurposing, refinishing, art, and sculpture. Her background includes 30 years of graphic design, logos, and branding. If you have an idea or concept and need a creative solution or graphic design, you can email Alicia directly at Alicia, and that is ALICIA at basilblue.com. Or you can visit her website at www.basilblue.com. And fun fact, Alicia actually designed the logo for Crafting Revolution. So that is an example of the impeccable work you can expect if that is something you are in the market for. So be sure to look up Alicia again at her website, basilblue.com. All right, let's get back into the action. Why is it so important to you? Like when you're sitting down starting a business and saying, this is what I want to show up with, like why?
Because it's who I am, and my business is very much me. It's clearly a part of me. Like other than occasionally I get people help me, but I'm the one writing that material. I'm the one making the soaps. I'm the face when you go to the website. And I want to be authentic in everything that I do. And I think if someone's fake, you can kind of tell. And I really felt like this is who I am. This is what I stand for. I'm not going to compromise on that. I'm also just kind of mouthy, so it's going to come out either way.
Love it. I'm going to say this moment right here, Laura, might be pushing me to do something I've been wanting to do for a while. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. That's an honor, honestly. I'm glad that it's hard to do. I mean, it's scary to put yourself out there, and there are so many terrible internet trolls. But in the end, if I'm not living authentically, then what am I doing? I don't want to make money off of people and not, I don't want to make money and not do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that. I mean, like I've struggled with, so, I wanted to, pretty early on, I wanted to give like 10% of sales to some kind of organization, like, from like putting aside 10% throughout the year and then giving it to an organization at the end of the year. And to be honest, my first thing that I really wanted to give to was an local organization that helps with homeless kids and teens that are members of the LGBTQ, community. But I was too scared. Because I was worried, well, then I won't get any sales and then I can't give. Like that was, that was the worry. And so I went to something that I still very much am passionate about, which is, domestic violence intervention. Like that's still something that I feel is a very worthy cause. And so that's what I give 10% to. Or in years, like the past couple of years with COVID, sales have not been there. So like I make things, like I made one and I still owe them another bed that can be
That's
given
amazing.
to like somebody who's moving into their own space for the first time type of thing. And, working with them in the future for fundraisers and stuff like that. And I still want to do that. But yeah, I think this may be a push of not removing that, but adding on top of something that I feel also passionate about and being willing to take that risk.
And honestly, it's brought more bad than good, and it's brought more business specifically for some of the products. The way I do it is I have one product that I sell year round that is the rainbow flag. And a portion of the profits from that go towards the organization I work with is called Transform. I actually started with similar to what you wanted to do. There's an organization in town in Cincinnati that provides housing and for teens, LGBTQIA teens. But then a friend that I'm connected with started a business that provides free clothing for, not a business, a charity, free clothing. And then they also have support groups for transgender kids and young adults. And just my community was kind of connected in that, and they were brand new. And so that's kind of why I switched over, just because they were small and I was connected with the people who were involved. But I think I've seen more people that are excited about it. I rarely get feedback. Once in a while at a show, I'll tell somebody and they'll put down the soap, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to donate that money even though they didn't buy anything,
Yeah.
But 99% of my feedback has been absolutely positive, to the point where people are sharing and people are excited, and they're just excited to see representation. And then during Pride Month, a bigger portion of my sales go towards Transform. And then I make a soap that looks like the trans flag, that Transform sells year round, but I have the rights to sell it in June, and all I pay myself back for is for the cost of supplies, and the rest goes to Transform.
Awesome. I guess thank you.
You're welcome. It's worth it. I totally know how hard it is, and that you can get 99 great comments and then one crummy comment, and that's the one you can't stop focusing on. And I totally get that. Totally. And I have, cried to my spouse and my friends and my therapist about it. But in the end, like, I know that what I'm doing is right.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I would say the worst, I mean, I would say I get more negative comments on like TikTok than Instagram. But usually the ones that go after, like, my sexuality, to me are kind of funny, things
right.
like, you cut straighter than you are. I do need to make that a shirt.
That would be hilarious.
I just need to figure out how to make that smoother. So there will be a shirt one day that says something like that. So those are like, whatever, like, that's just kind of funny, like,
right.
Or it's kind of like, duh, like, you're not informing anybody of anything when you say something like that.
Right.
But I think the worst one was one I read about the podcast, a review, on iTunes about the podcast, of talking about, like, we don't need to know about their lifestyle type thing. And it's like, well then go to a different podcast. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. People are mad, and they're going to stay mad. And the mad people most of the time are the ones who are going to comment.
Yes.
I keep reminding myself, like, people don't say things when things are good a lot of the time. They're more likely to complain when it doesn't look the way they want the world to look.
Yes.
And sorry for you if you're not going to accept that, because you're missing out on a lot. That's kind of what I feel about those people. But still, I could say that a million times, but living it personally is a lot harder.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely is. I mean, like with that too, it's just like with the what I've started doing with some of the negative comments I do get on social media is I don't engage with their negative comment. I just say thank you for engaging, because
Mhm.
it's like, you know what? There's something here, right? Like
Right.
you still took the time to comment. Like you
Exactly.
could have kept scrolling. So you still took the time to comment. And guess what? The
Exactly.
algorithm doesn't know it was a negative comment. So thank you for
Right.
engaging. And
Engagement is engagement.
yes. And I'll just leave it at that. And then, sometimes like my followers will like hop on and, say shit to that person on my behalf.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't have to do that then, right? It's like, I don't have to be the negative. I don't have to be the person who engages the
Exactly.
troll. Somebody else can do that for me.
And I've found that too. The one comment I keep getting is an account that's a freaking cat. Like it's pictures of their cat. And I think that they forget to log out of their cat account. And then so for me, it's easy to just go back and be like, that's the strong opinion for a guy who poops in a box, It's the weirdest thing. And so, I'm still trying to decide if I want to ignore it or if I want to take the opposite route and call it out and be like, look at this idiot.
Yeah.
I do follow some people who do it, and it's hilarious when they do it. I'm just not sure if I have the guts to do that.
Yeah, I've never like full on taken on somebody. To me, it's not worth it.
Right.
It's just not. It's like, yeah, I have enough voices in my head telling me negative things about myself. I don't need to like
Exactly.
invite somebody else to continue to do it.
Exactly. Whatever you say about me, I'm sure I've said it worse to myself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Do you think like, because you said about like with the company name that shows people the neighborhood you're from, like, is your success a lot based locally?
Um, yes. Yes. I mean, it's probably 50-50. Um, so I do in-person events a lot, and I'll gain a lot of customers from that. And I do local pickup. So there are people who are able to, get stuff from me, and they like it as a local, supporting local. And
Mhm.
then also because things have been shared, I get a lot of people sharing stuff. And so then I'll get people from everywhere. So it's really 50-50. Like a lot of people don't know. If you're in Cincinnati, you'll go, oh, Oakley, like the neighborhood. But if you're out of Cincinnati, it's just a name.
Right.
Or they think of the sunglasses and not the area.
Yeah.
But it's really 50-50. And people really are initially drawn in by descriptions and, ooh, pretty soaps.
Yeah.
And then go from there. Once they try it and realize, oh, this is actually good stuff on top of it, then that's when people come back.
Yeah.
So not to toot my own horn, but I make pretty decent soap. I'll admit that. But the one nice thing I'll say about myself.
What was the learning process for it?
Yeah, it was a little bit easier, I think, because I had baked and cooked, and it's a little bit of this, a little bit of this. There was some more science involved than wasn't necessarily, that wasn't my strong suit.
Mhm.
But definitely learning about the different properties of the oils. There was a lot of learning about like just a lot of hit and miss trying out to create my own recipe.
Mhm.
Because there's a million recipes out there, but I really wanted something that I came up with, and I could look at how all of these oils put together, blended into into a good soap that had the properties that I wanted of bubbly and hard and bar lasting and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
So that was kind of hard, but it's a lot of research, and I was so excited about it that it wasn't a slog, because I was
Mhm.
excited to watch 10,000 YouTube videos and read, a bunch of books and
Yeah.
go to conferences and be on Facebook groups. That made it a lot easier for me to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to, I guess, yeah, follow up that, like, what are properties of soap? Like, what properties should soap have? Like,
One, they should clean. That
yeah.
is, obviously, but properties like, do you have a super bubbly lather? Because if you have a super bubbly lather, with soap, that's good, but that could take away from the conditioning where it makes your skin feel good. A bubbly lather might strip all the oil out of your skin and then leaves your skin feeling really dry. A bar can be really hard, but then it doesn't lather very well. So the bar will last forever, but some people like their bubbles. A lot of that kind of just like the basics. And then also this is where I get nerdy, but there's a difference between like a soap and a detergent. So detergent is made with more chemicals. So your Dawn dish soap is technically a detergent. You'll see it made with like an SLS, like a sodium lauryl. There's different things to determine. Whereas a soap is made from, it's oils and some sort of fat. Mine are all vegan, just it's easier that way. And lye and water. And all that lye dissipates in the process of turning into soap, turning from this like liquid thing into a hard bar. It starts as almost like a cake batter and turns into a bar of soap. So, and every oil brings, coconut oil might make it bubbly, and cocoa butter might make it a little bit harder, and shea butter makes it conditioning. And learning all of those different, the different types of acids in the soaps and the different types of fats. So that's what kind of turns it into, the perfect bar of soap.
So, you talked about at first you were like giving us gifts and like, selling them at like cost and stuff like that to get the feedback. Was that basically like your market research for like, when do I hit the perfect recipe?
Yeah. It was a combination of seeing what people liked and what I liked, doing a lot of testing of, well, how fast does this, disappear? And once you get the base recipe, then you can tweak the things like the colors and the scents and the additives. But that was kind of my main thing, is just seeing what people liked. And I was really lucky to hit on something that worked pretty well without having to do, I wasn't doing hundreds of different variations. And I did tweak over time and make a few small changes, but I really kind of found something. I was lucky in finding something that worked really well for me.
Okay. And with the like the scents and the colors, are those just like oils, different oils you add?
Yeah, I do. Some of them are essential oils, and that's another learning curve, because essential oils have some people use them a little too liberally, and they can be really dangerous if you're not like following the proper procedure and using the right amounts. You can really hurt somebody if you're not using the right amounts of the oils. If you're using too much, it can literally burn people. So half of my line is essential oils, and then half of my line are synthetic fragrance oils, because certain smells you can't get from a plant. Like a lilac's great. A lilac's a real plant, but you can't make an essential oil out of a lilac and then use it in a soap. So I do a little bit both, and then I have to find, but even then in the fragrance oils, I need to make sure that I'm finding the right, that there are certain chemicals that aren't in it that can, that people are worried about and whatnot. So still trying to find that middle ground.
Yeah. How do you, how do you get, when you're trying to find like a new scent, how are you searching and sourcing that kind of?
Yeah, part of it is just looking online, and then everybody has samples. So I will buy a little sample to test it out, because a certain fragrance too, you have to test. Even after you make it, you have to test, make sure it stays in the bar, because some of them can tend to, dissipate over time a lot faster than others, especially with essential oils. Some of them can really like make your soap batter from this nice fluid thing where you can make pretty swirls to turning it into like literally like congealing on your stick blender. But I just kind of found my vendors that I work with that I know are really good. A couple of them have in-person stores that luckily have been like in Ohio where my in-laws are. So I've been able to go up and like physically smell stuff. But I have a whole mess of fragrance oils that I bought samples of, and I was like, nope, this isn't going to work. So usually I just give those away if someone's a candle maker and wants to practice. I'm like, here, try this, or a soap maker.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of trial and error and just finding those few trusted vendors and going from there.
Yeah. So what is the process? You said you usually do a name of a soap first and then design
a lot of times. Yes.
Yeah. So what is that process? Is it just like it comes to you in the shower and you're like, yep, that's it? Or
90% of the time, yeah, it's sort of like sort of a flash of okay, this works. Like I have one called Ew David from the show Schitt's Creek. And I was like, well, obviously it has to be based off his sweater. And then finding a scent that was kind of more gender neutral and not super flowery, but not super, masculine either. And then, and sometimes I'll just be like, ooh, that smells good. And then I'll have to kind of back my way into it, or I'll run a contest. Well, I'll ask once in a while. I've had a couple of soaps, 2 or 3 soaps, I think, where I've asked people to help name it. And then I'll just, if they win, I'll give them some soap and, they get their own prize. But most of the time it's a shower, or I'll look at, like, there's one I'm going to add in the spring that I smelled it was a candle at a store when I was out of town. And I was like, ooh. And so I started talking like, listen, I'm a soap maker. Is this where you got, you kind of know it's all the same kind of place. I'm like, is this where you got your scent? And she was willing to share. And I was like, okay, I could make that as a candle and I will send you one. And if you ever want to do a duo, let's chat.
So yeah, have you ventured at all into anything outside of soap, like the candle? Or
I do scrubs. Okay. So I'll do sugar scrubs. And then I also do shower steamers, which are like little kind of tabs that you put in your shower and they dissolve, and they're really strong scented and they kind of catch on the steam. So I do those. Those are actually one of my bigger popular products. And eventually I want to get into doing shampoo bars and doing like liquid concentrate soaps that people can then just, I don't want to ship water, but if I can make a concentrate, then people can have a couple of batches. I'd like to do that. At one point I was really into, let's do skincare and let's do this. You just get into that, like learning, like I want to do it all, but I realized I was getting so busy that I wanted to make the best possible product. I could, but that meant paring down what I did. So I'm hoping that I can start to bring on someone. I'm looking kind of for space. And then once I have someone that can help me in the production, then I'll have a little bit more time to play and make new things.
Yeah. You read my mind. How do you know I was going to go there next? Of like, when do you hit the ceiling of your limits and have to start bringing somebody else on?
Oh, I am there. At this point, it's just a matter of, I can't do all the things that people are asking me to do. I'm finding myself running out of products and people are asking to get them. I mean, I'm really blessed to have this problem that I can't do anymore. And I was actually supposed to start bringing on someone just to come a couple of nights. And then my whole family got COVID. It was a whole thing. Right. And so we're going to try and get back into that once we get out. I'm the last one to go. My quarantine ends tomorrow. Woohoo! But I also, right now, my space is in my house. And so I want to be able to find a space outside of the house so someone can be there and I don't have to be there once they're trained. I'd like to, give someone, and it's nice. I want my own space too, so they can come. I want to work with people who need a flexible schedule. I mean, I don't care when you do it, as long as you get it done. If you get it done at 5 a.m. or, 3 a.m., so be it. I just don't want to have to be there for it.
Right. Hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag woodworkher on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. Yeah, so what's that process like? I mean, you're just kind of getting that started, but what's that process being like of thinking about that? I don't know if you've managed people in the past.
It's terrifying because it's a big expense and everything has been kind of bootstrapped from day one. So luckily I have a lot of friends. I'm really blessed to have a lot of really cool people in my life. So I have a friend that's a real estate agent that does commercial. She's always keeping an eye out for me. The organization Transform that I work with, they're always looking, they're kind of running out of space where they are now. So we kind of have each other in mind if there's something where we can share a building. just kind of keeping my eyes open. I want to get through the holidays before I really start to put my foot down and be like, all right, we've got to do this, and finding a space that's, kind of central. I also still have my kids, and because I'm my own boss, I'm the one that has to make sure I'm home to get them from school, get them to school, that sort of thing. So I want to be relatively close, so I'm not wasting time. That's part of the bigger problem, is where I am is kind of more urban, and the prices are a little bit more expensive. So I could get something cheaper, but it would be a half-hour drive, and that's a waste of time when I only have so many hours in a day. Plus, I tend to forget stuff, and I would have to I want to be able to just run back really quick and go pick something up if I leave something at the studio. I could see myself doing that.
I feel that in the reverse, right? So I had a separate shop space for years, and I appreciated the separate shop space in a lot of ways, because it was get away from the distractions of home. I'm not home, so I can't find myself on the computer. I have to be working. But then the flip side is now that I had to move my shop back home, it's oh, for one, I have amenities like a bathroom that's available. That's a big thing, people. And then things oh yes, I did get distracted and I spent all day on the computer, doing work, but it wasn't shop work. But guess what? Now after I pick up the kids, I have a half hour before having to make dinner that I can just go out to the shop and do something. Whereas my shop was a 20-minute drive before. So it's yeah, that's not happening. Or if I did, like you just said, if I got to the shop and realized I forgot stuff at home, it was well, I'm changing the plans for what I'm doing today, because I'm not driving back. I'm not taking 40 minutes to drive home and then drive back here. I just, I'm not wasting that time. So there are benefits to having it.
That will be a learning curve, because it is nice. My kids are old enough now that they can be a little independent, and I can say, here, go do your homework, go watch this movie, keep yourself entertained for a half hour while I finish this. Especially during the summer, I don't have to necessarily pay for a babysitter, 5 days a week to help me do this. And also, I'm an early riser, so if I want to get up at 5 a.m., I can go work in my pajamas and not have to get up and get in the car and worry about waking people up, and then worrying about being home if they do wake up. That sort of thing. It's easy to be making into the last minute and then grab my keys and take my kid to school.
So yeah, I don't know, maybe you'll end up with dual studios for a while you make that transition.
My husband has already said, I think that's probably gonna what you're end up doing. Some things are gonna be based at home.
And then what about that piece of bringing somebody on to work for you, and that process?
That's the logistics of it are more scary than the actual training someone. I am a little bit type A, but I think I'm so overwhelmed right now that I'd be really happy to let go. And there's certain things that I like to do more than others that would rather just pay someone to do it. Getting a bookkeeper was the best decision I ever made, and totally worth the money, because that's not where my strengths lie. But I would really like to give someone the opportunity who needs the job but doesn't necessarily have the ability to do a 9 to 5. That is kind of be it a stay-at-home mom, or someone who's also is their own maker, has their own business and just needs to supplement. Kind of give those options. A teenager who can come after school. And I have some people who are helping me now, but nothing is formal. And so the scarier part is actually having an employee and starting to worry about the insurance and the payroll and all that sort of stuff. That's been my biggest challenge, is oh crap. I don't know how to do that. Finally getting a business. I mean, I know who I would have, but finally calling the business lawyer, that sort of thing. That's the stuff I never really wanted to do. I need to bring on a COO to do that stuff for me, so I can just make.
Yes. Yeah, that's when you made that decision of okay, so that the government doesn't come after me, I have to turn this into a legit business. Was that scary at all?
Yes, that was really scary. Even just the process of getting a bank account and getting my tax ID, all of that stuff. They don't make it easy. And luckily my husband is also has his own small business and had gone through it, and he kind of likes that stuff more than I do. So, and he has his MBA. So I was just like, Brett, I got a lot of help from him. And from that, I've been able to help friends who've done the same thing. But I don't know if I could have done it if I didn't have someone there to guide me. I would have needed to find a mentor if my husband wasn't able to help me. Because it was a lot, and I still am not sure how I figured it out. I just got a letter the other day saying that I have to start paying my taxes monthly instead of every 6 months. I'm like, oh crap. No, now I have to remember how to do it, but maybe now I'll remember how to do it.
Yeah. I know. I'm always late on my quarterly sales tax.
Yep.
I'm like always late.
Yeah, me too.
It's like I get the reminder of like, you're late. And then I'm like, okay. And then it's still like a month later.
I know. Yeah. I think I'm learning that it's not just me. There's a lot of people who do that. They're kind of used to it at this point.
See, I don't have a bookkeeper yet, so it's still all on me. And let's just say I don't do it until it's time for like figuring out the quarterly sales tax stuff.
Yep.
And so then I'm like, well, shit. And so it's really more of like avoiding doing all of that and like spending like 3 hours on the computer, like balancing everything out.
Yeah, I get it completely. That's just not where my strengths lie.
No. So I had a question. It was there. Oh, I was gonna ask, like, when you were growing up, I mean, did either one of your parents have like a side hustle or a business of their own?
Not really. My dad took over my grandpa had a real small trucking company, just 2 or 3 guys. And my dad took that over when his kind of job situation changed, and my grandpa finally like semi-retired. But otherwise, no. My mom did like the Discovery Toys thing for a while, but that there wasn't a thing. There wasn't really that entrepreneur spirit. And honestly, I never thought, like I always said, I find like as soon as I say I'm never, that's like the universe's sign to be like, ha, you're funny. I never really wanted to start a business. And I was really surprised in how much I enjoy it, other than the really nitty gritty kind of aspects of it. But no, that really hasn't been there wasn't a lot of examples there.
I feel like it's with our generation and on that a lot of people, if nothing else, have a side hustle that's like their own business, crafting or whatever. But I don't know, maybe that's what the algorithms of social media are feeding me, but it feels like so many more people are like starting their own thing instead of like, at least when I was growing up, it was like the line that was laid in front of you is go to college, get a professional job, stay there until you retire. And
right.
That was like what was laid out in front of me. Because that was like my parents' generation, right? Like that's what you did. That's what you do. And so it was not even in a thought. Though I always knew from like my first job, I always knew I hated working for somebody else.
Right.
It does not work for me. I just
right.
do well working for somebody else. Unless that somebody else is going to be like, you just go do your job all day long and I will never check in with you. That is my boss. So it's like I've started quite a few like little side hustles, right? That just panned out. So like you, when I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, like it was scary, but it's also been exciting to learn like the business stuff, because I didn't take any business classes or anything like that.
Me neither.
In college whatsoever. So it has all been like learn as you go, and usually it's learn as you go because you screwed something up, and then
a lot of trial by fire.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah, I'm still kind of like, what? How did this happen? but definitely the same way. And I just feel like, but also I will acknowledge I have this privilege in that I am married and my husband has he's an engineer. He has a really good job. We have insurance. If I were to shut the business down, we'd have to tighten our budget, but we wouldn't be completely screwed. Right. So I am extremely lucky. And I acknowledge that that is a huge part that has allowed me to do this because it wasn't, a lot of people don't have that option and it can be a real struggle otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I mean, my wife has a job with insurance that pays really well. And so it's allowed me to do more of like a job part-time so that I can attempt to do this a little bit more.
Right.
And that definitely is a privilege for sure. What do you think the impact is going to be on your kids watching you do all of this?
They were outside the other day playing a game where they were like collecting rocks and leaves and talking about wholesaling them. So clearly they have been influenced by business. My son is already he knows he wants to be an engineer and he wants to start his own business. And he comes from, my husband's an engineer. His dad was an engineer. His grandpa was an engineer. His great grandfather, people were engineers before engineers was a name. Like there's the knack and they have it. And my daughter, same thing. She's a science, like she wants to be a scientist and she doesn't stop asking questions and she'll be perfect for it. But they both, I think that they just think that that's how it goes, is that people just have their own business. My husband, has a side hustle as well. And they've seen this forever. My daughter was like 1.5, maybe 2 when I started the business. And that's all she knows. And I think that they're the same way. And the way the economy, I could get into a whole thing about capitalism, but the way it's going, it's leading more and more towards that. And people are saying, I'm not going to work these crappy corporate jobs anymore. I can do it better.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what the next generation is going to do. Cause I think they've shown so far, a lot of them have been pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I was thinking that too with my kids, which they're just a little bit shifted down from your kids' age. I've got 8 and almost 6 year old, but like especially with my 8-year-old, like he still does a little bit of a line of talking of like he's gonna go to college and right now he really wants to be an animator for video games. That's what he wants to be, but but he also understands like, or I could just like do that, like not have to go through the step A to step B to step C, like to figure that out. And I could see him definitely starting his own thing. Their relation to my own thing is more still like, Mom, go sell another piece of furniture so we can go buy XYZ.
Right.
I'm like, if I do, that is not going to be used to pay for XYZ, but
right. Yeah. Not exactly how it works.
Not exactly. Yeah. Where to them, it's still like $100 seems like massive quantity of money.
Yeah. My son he's hilarious. I'll come home and be like, Mom, how much did you make today? How much did you make at your show? And do you think maybe you should sell these for more? And if he's at a show with me, I'm like, dude, you need to like lessen up the pressure on your sales pitch. We're not that kind of business. They crack me up, but that's what they know is they know business. They know, they understand that their dad goes to a job and that at least my son will remember, Mom worked as well, but they definitely have a complete, like their childhood is totally different. Like their dad makes robots and their mom makes soap in their basement. So
right. Yeah. It is. It definitely is a unique thing, and it's interesting because it's like my wife, goes off to an office every day. And so I think it's harder for them. Like we get lots of questions about, but like, what do you really do? Like, what do you make? Because they
Right.
see me making. And so like the idea that a job in my wife's case is predominantly on a computer,
Hmm.
assisting people who do make things, but she's not physically making. It's like it's still really hard for them to grasp, like, but what do you do? Like the woodworking's easy. Like they see the
Right.
physical object that
Hmm.
I've made, right? So it's like, oh, okay, that's what you do. But they
I,
totally don't understand like my job. You know, I try to
mhm.
explain to them what I do, and they're like, huh? Like I just don't get it.
My kids are the same way. Like, because my husband, he's an engineer, but like he can come out and say, like, I am making this airplane, I am making this engine. So even then in his job, there's an aspect of making to it.
Mhm.
It's not quite the same, but my kids don't, a banker doesn't make sense to them. And that's great if someone is a numbers person and that's what
Right,
they want to
right.
do. But just how they were raised, they always saw a end result product.
Yep. Yep.
And they're just kind of learning slowly the background that there needs to be some business and some
Yes.
paperwork and a
Yeah.
lot of time on a computer in order to make that product and to sell that product and to pay
Yes.
taxes on that product. And
Yes. I mean, even so much like my oldest also gets into the social media aspect where he's constantly being like, I think you need to do this for your next TikTok video. Like
that's
this
cute.
would be like,
Hmm.
successful for you. Or like he was telling me about the podcast. He was like, don't ask people to subscribe every single episode because they just don't do it. You need to like do it like once a month,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
you'll get more people to subscribe. It's like, thank you for the business advice. I will take note of that.
Yes. But that's amazing because that's a childhood that I didn't have,
Right.
where I could play a role in this
Yeah.
family business and see someone actually doing it. And through no fault of my parents, but that's just
Right.
not, like you said, it was this path of you do this and this and this, and then you stay at your company until you die, you
Yep.
know?
Thank God we just didn't listen well, right? I mean,
I know, right? Thank God there was not economy that allowed me to do that
yes.
because
Yes. Um, well, what's on the horizon? What's something coming up that you're excited about besides the building and the
right. Really it's trying to introduce these new products. I'm really excited to do the research and learn. It's just a matter of time. Like this was supposed to happen. My goal was spring 2020 to start researching soap shampoo bars, and then the pandemic hit, and suddenly my kids were home. Like, well, that basically just I think pushed the whole world off by
yeah,
a
yeah,
year.
yeah.
But right now it's getting through the holidays because it's great, but it's so super busy, and I have in-person events and whatnot. But I really am looking on expanding and bringing in new people and being able to introduce a couple new products, but I want to make sure that I'm doing them right before I put them out there.
Awesome. Well, we're at the end of our time together. So I want to,
Great. This is great. Thank you so much.
yeah, I want to give you a chance to let people know again, how and where they can find you and follow along with you.
Yeah, I am the Oakley Soap Co. So CO. It's oakleysoapco.com. My Instagram. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I think I have a Twitter just to park it, but I'm not sure I ever posted. And I kind of try to post. I like TikTok the best, but I'm not great at making videos, and I tend to just go on my For You page and forget, like, oh, I have to work
Yeah.
an hour later.
I know.
So Instagram and Facebook are kind of the two places that you can find me, and then the website.
Awesome. Well, thanks for chatting with me today, Laura.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so again, that was Laura Pipitone of Oakley Soap Company, and you can find the links on how to follow along with her and check out all of her cool and funny name soaps in the show notes for today's episode. So where you can find that, first, start by, if you're listening to this, check the description of the episode in your podcast app. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can check the description down below. And lastly, you can head on over to freemanfurnishings.com/podcast to find this week's episode and all the past weeks, months, and years episodes as well. All there with all the cool links. So check that out. Please follow along with the podcast over on Instagram at Crafting a Revolution. And while you're over there, you can come on over and say hi to me, because you can find me on Instagram and all of the social media at Freeman Furnishings. That's where you will find me designing and creating furniture and home decor and doing quite a few shop dances as well. So come on over at Freeman Furnishings and say hi. All right. So looking forward to another new episode coming up in just a few days. In the meantime, let's go craft a revolution.
She, her, them, they got something they wanna say. Solution for the toxic